Hello and good evening. Hi, this is Christine Crowell and welcome everyone. I am so glad that I'm able to share this with you today because what I think is so important for business owners is to really be aware of the step-by-step guide to submitting a care contract. Now, it's important for you to learn how to do this for yourself so that you know the steps, what's involved, but also you understand the hard work that goes in to submitting a contract. And I can't stress this hard enough because a lot of people just think it's easy and it's quick and it's fast. It takes a lot of thinking, it takes a lot of organizing, it takes time. So today I wanted to explain this to you in a video so that you're then able to look at doing these things, these steps for yourself, or B, if you want to get an organization to do it for yourself, for example, then feel free to do so, but you need to understand what's actually involved in this, and it's not a quick, easy step by step thing. Okay, we do contracts all the time, and I'll be honest with you. We'll get a contract through and sometimes the date changes. Sorry, I'm just going to drink my water. So although the organization, just goes to show it's live, I can't stop my coughing. Although the organization may say, yes, this contract will start on this date, for example, it could be pushed back. And that could be to do with finance. It could be to do with maybe there's something incorrect in the actual information that was sent out, for example. So there could be a lot of reasons. There could be something wrong with the contract. So the legal team might need to look at it again. So I just wanted to quickly explain that to you. So what I want to say to you is I'm going to talk to you today about creating a structured list of essential steps that you need to really be able to do effectively by collating the information to prepare for when you're going to submit a contract. Now, it is easy to press that button, that green button, to say, yes, I want to express an interest here. But that's the easy part. Just pressing a button is the easy part. It's the actual work that is involved after you press that button. And that clock is ticking. There's a deadline there. So imagine there's a clock ticking, going tick, tick, tick in the side of your head. And you're thinking, all right, okay, I've got 4 weeks. Usually what you really should do is give yourself 4 to 6 weeks to do a contract minimum. Anything less than that, that means that you're going to have to be rushing, because a human brain can only do so much, and they also want to be able to do it in the correct way, for example. Okay, so I'm going to go through with you the step-by-step guide for submitting your care contract. And this is a tender that you've possibly seen. So you've pressed that green button. So now what do you do? Okay, so the first thing that you should do, one of the things you should do, is obviously review the tender specifications so that you understand the requirements. Now, sometimes when you press that red button, you might not see the information, but really you should be able to see that information before you've even expressed an interest. But sometimes you have to do it in order to see all of the attachments, for example, and then you download them all. But I'm going to go through with you here in this video today. So you need to understand the requirements, read through the tender documents carefully. you need to be able to understand what the scope of care services is that is required and what the deadline is and the format of the submission. So it could say the deadline ends in a year's time, for example. It depends whether it's frameworks, and I'm going to go into that. It's going to be another training, probably tomorrow, where I talk about the different frameworks, for example, so that you understand where I'm coming from. So, clarifications. Are there any unclear points that you're not sure about? So you can reach out to the tendering body, which is usually the buyer, for example, and you are the supplier of the services, for example. So you can reach out to the buyer for the clarification before even starting the submission, for example, because there could be something there that's not clear for you. So you need to ask that question. But sometimes you'll see a list of questions because usually the answers have already been provided due to the previous questions, for example. So prepare your company's information. So get your legal business name ready, your registered, obviously you should know all of these things, the registered address, provide your full legal name and registered business address, for example. What is your business registration details? Include your company registration number, your VAT number, and your DUNS number, which is, part of sometimes when you're dealing with government organization or any organization, if they ask you for a DUNS number is whereby it is like a financial number. It's known worldwide. Everybody has a DUNS number, and they're different numbers. So they're worldwide numbers, but they are different, and it relates to your company only. So someone cannot have the same DUNS number as you because it's a different company. So back to the business registration section here, where I said about including your VAT number, your DUNS number, and any other relevant registration documents. Now, if you're registered with a governing body, then you need to say so. If you're registered with an organization, for example, then you need to say so, for example. Also, get your public liability, your insurance, your professional indemnity. We did a video on this earlier, for example. It'll be here somewhere. And then include proof of that insurance that you have required by the tender. Now, sometimes it may require that you have insurance, and usually when you're dealing with government organizations, they want to ensure that you do have the insurance. They don't want to waste their time. They don't want to waste your time. So sometimes you have to upload it. Whether you're going to get it or not is a different story, because it is up to the buyer to make that decision. And if you don't provide what they've asked you for, then they will just, disqualify you from applying, for example. Or they may be kind enough and email you and say, please, can you provide the insurance? Or there may be a clause in there to say, okay, the insurance is this amount, that amount, this amount, for example. Do you agree, self-certify that you will have this relevant insurance if you are awarded the contract? Then, of course, you're going to say yes. Okay, so any care accreditation that you have, provide details of any accreditations that you have, like the Care Quality Commission, that you're registered in the UK, or similar regulatory body certifications wherever you are around the world, basically, as well. But the UK, it is the Care Quality Commission, for example. And also they may ask for, in the UK, they may say, are you registered with the Recruitment Employment Confederation? Because if you're doing home care, then that is CQC. But if you're doing a care agency, for example, recruitment care agency, where you don't need to be registered with the Care Quality Commission, because you're not providing care in people's own homes, you're providing care to the NHS, for example, or to care homes, for example, who are already registered. So it doesn't make sense to do regulation upon regulation. Okay, so you need to also demonstrate your relevant experience. And this is really important here because you could be asked to do a pitch, you could be asked to do a presentation once you've submitted it. Maybe you've got a firm to submit it for you. We do contract services, but maybe you've got a firm that submitted it for you. But did you read it before it got uploaded? Do you understand what you've said in that contract? Because they may want to meet with you, whether it's face to face or whether it's online, where they're going to ask you possibly about doing a pitch about what you submitted, for example, and why you're the best choice for them to use, or one of the agencies, for example. The next thing that they're going to ask is, do you have any previous or relevant experience, for example, in care contracts? Do you have a proven track record? So you'll need to provide examples of similar care contracts that your agency has done and completed successfully, especially those with similar scope and scale that you're applying for example. So the next thing you need to think about is client references. So this is a list that you need to really get together so that you can start ticking it off, saying, yes, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. Create a spreadsheet if you need to, for example. So client references, you need to list about 2 to 3 references from previous clients who can speak to the quality of the services that you provide with the reliability as well. The next thing that you need to think about is the relevant case studies. Now, is it possible for you to provide some relevant case studies that are detailed examples that showcase that your agency business is success at delivering a care service, for example? Or you may even look at some data out there to see what case studies that are similar. Even though you may not have that experience, you can possibly use a case study that was a very successful case study, but you've got to explain in that case study how it was a successful case study, and that your organization is able to implement it through XYZ, the same as with the case study that you provided, for example. So you have to demonstrate that you understand as well. Okay, so what is your service delivery model? So you've got to think about what your care plan templates are, include examples. Sometimes they may ask for this. Include examples of, blank care plans or templates that you have for your agency, for example, in order to approach clients. What is your staffing recruitment plan, for example? Provide a detailed plan including their qualifications, their experience of care workers, any care coordinators and managers, for example. So sometimes you have to create a flow chart of your staff members. So for example, you could say the CEO at the top, then you could have your finance, then your manager, depends how big you are really, then your supervisors here, and then you then got your care staff, for example. Okay, so you may have a receptionist, you may have a bookkeeper. I'm just giving you some examples here. Okay, and then you got your care staff in the field, like I said. So what is your training and development section? So you need to include your training records, for example, possibly for staff. Sometimes when you're dealing with contracts, they will audit you. So you will be audited usually once a month, and sometimes you're going to be pre-audited because they want to ensure that you're safe to be able to deliver that service, for example. So they may pre-audit what information you've given them. So you need to include the training records for your staff, highlighting any specialized training, for example, that's relevant to the tender, especially if it's to do with mental health, for example, or learning disability, or physical disability, dementia care, elderly care, etc. So, what is then the next thing you need to think about is your workforce management. So, provide details how you will manage your staffing levels to ensure that the service needs are met and there is a continuity of care. So, you've got to also ensure that you've got, staff available so that if someone goes off sick and when it happens, that you've got someone else to just step in to take over. So always make sure obviously you've got your on call, but always know what your availability is of your staff member on a particular day so that you know that you will always be able to cover, for example. So the next thing you want to do is you want to provide details of how, like I said, how you manage your staff, but also there'll be quality assurance as well and your compliance. So you need to be monitoring and doing evaluation systems, detail how the quality of care will be monitored and also evaluated, including regular audits, your performance reviews, and feedback mechanisms from clients and their families, for example. It's important that you have a spreadsheet with your audits and your compliance of your staff members. You've got to ensure that the training is there, but also that you've seen the certificate and that it's real, and that you've also got the date that it started, for example, and when it expires. So all of these things need to be in date. You can't have things out of date. If it is out of date, then you need to go back to the candidate, for example, or the staff member and ask them for an up-to-date qualification, certification, if it's a mandatory training, which must be done yearly, for example. So think about that. The next thing you need to think about is compliance with any industry standards. Do you demonstrate? Are you able to demonstrate that your agency meets the relevant standards, i.e., are you registered with CQC, for example, regulations, health and safety standards, for example? Safeguarding policies. Include your agency's safeguarding policies that protects vulnerable adults, individuals, and ensure all staff are fully vetted and trained in safeguarding issues, for example. So think about the safeguarding procedures. Make sure that their DBS is enhanced, for example, and that you are able to check that their DBS is current and that the number matches what is on the update service, for example. So then the next thing you need to think about is your financial information. And this is where you do a cost breakdown, where you provide a clear breakdown of the costs associated with you delivering that care. What is the hourly rate? You've got to justify your hourly rate. You can't just pluck a number out of thin air. You've really got to sit down and work out what is your true hourly rate. And I do have videos in my playlist where you can know, I think it's called Know What Price to Charge and Price Rates, for example, because you need to break it down so that you know what your true cost is to deliver that service. And that way it's fair and true, for example, and it's justified that you charge that amount of money. Okay? So then the next thing that you need to think about as well, like I said, the financial rates. What are your rates, your service charges, or any additional costs, expenses, etc. Then financial stability. You want to submit your recent statement, i.e. your balance sheet, your profit and loss accounts, or demonstrate that you've got financial stability of your agency. So sometimes you may ask your bank, for example, or maybe an accountant, for example, if they could give you a letter, for example, to say that it's either viable or that you've got financial stability. So they also want value for money. So show how your services can provide value for money, for example, including any efficiencies or additional services that you can offer at no extra cost to them, which is really good. They like to see that. Next thing you need to think about is your health and safety procedures. What is your risk management, for example? Include your risk assessments that outline any potential risk to clients and staff and how it will be managed, for example. What is your emergency protocols? Provide details of emergency response procedures, including what happens in the case of illness, accident, or medical emergencies, for example. The next thing you need to also think about is your care policies, for example. Sometimes they will ask you to upload these copies, for example. So they'll ask for copies. It could be your client care guide, for example. It could be things that are personalized and tailored to your organization. Next thing is data protection and confidentiality. So you want to be able to show how you handle sensitive client data, GDPR, HIPAA, for example. What laws is it that you're aware of depending on where you're based, for example, and what policies do you have in place, and how do you protect people's information. The next thing you need to think about is your equality and diversity. So share your agency's policies on equality and diversity in both your recruitment agency, for example, and your home care agency. Another thing that we all need to be think about is health and well-being strategies. So they want to also get client feedback on satisfaction, outcome measures, explain how you will be able to provide a good outcome for the client who's receiving the care. And you'll be able to show evidence of that as well. And the next thing is you want to do a final review before submission. So first you got to make sure you got all the documents together first, create a spreadsheet, and then you tick them off and put them as green as you're doing it, ticking it off, for example. Then you need to also prepare for your submission package. So organize the submission in the format requested. Sometimes it's hard copy or electronic, for example, and you must submit on time. Now, I can't stress this enough. So what I'm talking about here is what we actually covering at our bootcamp, which is going to be in a couple of weeks' time. We hold them every month. We've got a brand new bootcamp now as well. There is a link here for you to find out more information on that. It's free to book an appointment with us so that we can talk to you about what our bootcamp offers, for example. But we go through how to submit contracts. I show you where to get those contracts from, and then you submit, providing you've got all the information together. So we like to try and do that as quickly as possible so that it gives you time to get things ready, and then on the last day you submit. But we also are covering, due to the inflation, for example, and things rising, for example, we are covering business recovery strategies. We're also covering staff auditing as well. We're also covering inflation. We want to help you to beat inflation. We're also covering AI automations in your business, because we've got to think about this and we need to do it now. Not wait till April to come. We need to do this now. And this is the reason as well why we've got this brand new bootcamp, which we've got all of these 4 elements in there. That our boot camps are over 3 days, and I believe this is going to actually end up going over 4 days because of the content that is involved in it. And I want to ensure that you get good value for money as well. And it's not just about you applying for contracts, it's about how you're going to manage the contract. What do you do when you get the contract? What happens afterwards? how you're going to ensure that you are managing that contract. I'll also be talking about inflation. There's national insurance is going up in April, for example. So how are you going to manage that? Creating a crisis fund as of really now should be happening to help you to meet that additional costs, for example, but also looking at your staffing levels as well. And we cover that in the boot camp as well. And I can help you with evaluating your company, workflow. Do you need to have as many staff in your office, for example? Because, we've got so many new options now. Because of the inflation, we've got to be careful. We don't want the whole ship to go down, for example. We need to be able to mitigate the risk and do damage limitation must be done now, for example. Okay, so I've spoken to you about how to win a care contract tender. I've taught you about step-by-step guide to give you success. And this is something which you can quite easily understand once you start listening to the video. You may need to listen to this a couple of times, but I wanted you to be aware of what happens when there is a tender that you're looking to submit, or you've got a company that's doing it for you. And when you submit it, they may say, okay, yes, this is going to start on this particular day. And you may actually get a pushback where they say, actually, it's not going to start on this day. There's a bit of a delay at the moment. We need to sort something out. We will get back to you within the next, 3 weeks, for example. Do bear with us. Sorry for any inconvenience. You get the contract. Congratulations. And you'll be like a tier. So there's different tiers. There's the ones where they call you straight away. Then there's the ones where they call you the second. You're the second in the line. Or you could be the third or fourth or fifth or sixth in line. So when you get the contract, sometimes it works out that way. So they'll ring the first person that's available. They can't provide anyone. Then they go to the next step. Then they go to the next level. Then the next and the next. And that is how that works in terms of when you do win the contract. But make sure that you read through the fine print. That's important as well, to make sure that it's suitable for you and your organization. Have a look, make sure that you've got all of the crisis plans sorted, ready, so you know that if this happens, for example, then what are you going to do next? And we also cover this in the boot camp as well, which is, brand new, for example, but we do cover crisis planning. And I'm not talking about continuity plan. I'm talking about crisis planning. What to do in the event of a crisis or a challenge in your finances, for example. So we talk about this in great depth, so that you really do understand and you're prepared. Because I want you to be prepared so that when it does happen, then you know what to do. You're not going to be like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. This is awful. I want you to be prepared and be like the eagle, have the eagle mentality and soar through that challenge. Although it may feel uncomfortable, but that's okay. Business is uncomfortable. You have to learn to be uncomfortable to grow. It's just how it is. If business was smooth sailing, we'd all be doing it, but we're not. So I want you to be able to win when you do apply for these contracts, but I also want you to be aware of the tender questions to give yourself time. But that is the first step that I was telling you, the first list of things that you need to do in order to help you to win a care contract. So thank you so much. I know it was 30 minutes. Usually I'm an hour, and I've done quite well today. So thank you so much, everyone. I would love for you to book an appointment. The link is in the description, and you can book an appointment so that you can have a chat with me, for example. And I really do appreciate you all. And okay. Yeah, so yeah. So, for example, someone's just, thank you for that. Thank you for your question in the chat. You know something? If I was going to do something straight away, it depends how fast you want things to be. I would definitely do a recruitment care agency, because when you're looking at getting registered with CQC, you've got to then fill out the application forms, then you've got to submit all the policies and procedures, then you've got to wait for interview, which could take 3 to 6 months, for example. I've known people that have waited a whole year. Okay, so I would definitely do the recruitment company first. Okay, you can always look at doing domiciliary care afterwards, but you can do the recruitment agency straight away, and then you can be working on the domiciliary side alongside once you've set up the agency, recruitment agency. I hope that was helpful to you. Okay, and then you also mentioned about, yeah, so you can open up a recruitment care agency without being registered with CQC in the UK, because you're not sending staff in the community. You're not going into people's own homes because they are not regulated. So you need to go, if you want to do a recruitment care agency where you're not registered with the CQC, then you go into the care homes. For example, you provide staff into the care homes and also the private hospitals, NHS, for example. That can still allow you to provide staff and run a care agency without being registered for CQC, for example. Yes, so just book there's a link, there should be a link in the description here. Just book a free 15-minute, 30-minute appointment. It will be online, for example. So once you book the appointment, you should get a link, and that link it will take you to a Zoom meeting, for example. And that would be, I'd be able to speak with you as well. So thank you for that question. That is a good question. And that is part of one of the things I was going to cover this week. But thank you for mentioning it now. But I will be covering that. So yeah, you don't need to be registered with CQC if you're providing staff members, healthcare workers, nurses to care homes, NHS hospitals, private hospitals, for example, because they're already registered. So it doesn't make sense to do regulation on regulation. It's only when it's in individuals' own home where they are vulnerable, for example, unless you are a private assistant. But that's another show for another day. But I will mention it though, because the private assistants, they are self-employed. There's no employees. For example, they're the ones that go into a client who is private paid, and they get to choose who comes into their home and delivers their care to them, for example. So they can have a private assistant who is then paid a higher rate because they have to manage their own affairs, for example, i.e. their own bills. Okay, so in terms of setting up a care agency, it can take it really depends. We've had someone set it up in a month, but that is very rare. So not many people can do that. That's like I would say probably 5% can set something up in a month. But if you're going to set up a recruitment care agency, you've got to give yourself 3 months to do it. Okay, give yourself time to understand, digest things, and do things step by step, because then you get stronger and stronger and stronger, and then you learn how to run your business, because you would have dealt with all of it and had time to absorb and put it into practice, and then you're getting stronger and stronger. So I hope that was answerable for you. And you said, how difficult is it to set up? Well, it depends, really. That's a tough question, because it depends who you are and what your skill sets are, and some people, they like to take their time and absorb things. We've had it where clients, it's taken them a whole year to set up a care agency, for example, because they needed to understand it and take it in and absorb all of the policies and procedures, for example. So it really depends on you, the individual. But the usual time is 3 months for a recruitment care agency, for example. That's the usual time. Okay? Now, when I did it many, many years ago, I did it in 6 weeks, but I locked myself in my bedroom, and my husband was looking after the kids, and I was like, I need to do this. So that was an extreme thing, but I needed to do it because I needed to get money in. So it depends, really. And I know that sounds funny, but I literally did lock myself in my bedroom, because when you got little kids, they're knocking on the door distracting you. So I had to put a lock on the door so that I could get work done, and my husband thank God he was there to look after the kids. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do it. So thank you so much, and thank you for your questions. I really appreciated it, and I hope that you're able to book an appointment and I can talk to you online, and then we can really go through what it is that you need to do and where your location is, for example, and let's take it from there. And let's hope that you can join our boot camp as well. All right, so have a wonderful day, everyone, and thank you for your time. I also want to say, please do like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I also want to say thank you for subscribing. Thank you so much. Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. It just lets me know that you're listening and that you want to hear more, because for me, I can talk, well, you probably can tell that already. I can talk for England for a long time. I could be here all day and speak about care, because I love to talk about it. So I really do appreciate you subscribing to the channel and liking the content as well. I appreciate that as well. So thank you so much, everyone, and do enjoy the rest of your evening. I look forward to speaking to you tomorrow. I am coming on here every day, if you haven't noticed, at 7 p.m. UK time. So please, if you've got time, set your alarm for that time and let's do this. Let's make it work. Or if you don't have the time at that time, then watch the videos. I've got plenty of videos for you to watch. I'm here to teach you how to run your own healthcare business. And I'm also going to be covering supported living. I'm also going to be covering how to set up a care home for the elderly for 3 to 4 residents, because that's what I did as well. And it's such a beautiful thing to do in your community. So please do stay tuned, subscribe, because I will be covering lots of content. I've got 35 years of content for you, and I'm going to be sharing it with you here on this YouTube channel. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful day. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Hopefully you'll be able to make it. Like I said, I'll be coming on 7 o'clock every day, for example, because I want to be able to share this with you. I'm also going to be doing a podcast, which is meant to be starting the beginning of next month. So we're working on that as well. So it will be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and I can't remember the other channel. But my podcast agent, Christine, will go through that. But thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for your messages as well. I really appreciate you all. Have a wonderful, blessed day, everyone. Thank you. Bye.